Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
I I am fantastic. It is fantastic to meet you as well. And it is really hard for me to describe how hard Pig hit me in the feels after watching
Wow.
it. I was not expecting that movie, and I probably cried for a half hour after watching it, just thinking about it.
Wow.
So
I don't know if I should say I'm sorry or thank
you
you or
destroyed me emotionally. So thank you for that.
I'm really
Um,
happy to hear that.
it was absolutely beautiful. And so my first question is going to be really basic: is what inspired this story for you?
Yeah, it was a couple of things. I think it was a two-pronged thing. From the plot direction, I was fascinated by the truffle world. There was something about an old man with his pig that was immediately appealing in that sense of isolation in the woods. Something about that called to me. And also just that world of truffles that we're all vaguely familiar with, but there's a lot of room for kind of creative exploration there. And then that ended up combining with kind of an exploration of grief that came from my dad passed away when I was a kid, and as I got older, I think I started seeing kind of the long-term effects of grief rather than the immediate effects, and seeing how it had sort of shaped my family's life and how they interacted with the world and how they related to other people. And I think everyone kind of integrates grief into their lives long term in different ways. So I was interested in exploring how a few different characters do that and how that could bake into a plot about a guy and his pig as well.
And so that was one thing that I really just gravitated towards in this, because I've recently lost my father a few years ago.
I'm so
And
sorry.
thank you for that. Was how this movie deals with loss and the acceptance of it, and it shows those different ways. Like, I don't want to do any spoilers here, but it really does. That's like the core piece of this that I took away from it, was how you can just hold on to that grief and how it can change you as a person in different ways. And I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, that was really important to me because, I think we all, there is an element to grief where when you immediately have a tragedy, you have shock or you have some sort of reaction in the moment that uh, if you're not careful about it or if you're not at least aware of it, it can linger in your life in ways that you weren't anticipating. And I think just being sort of honest with ourselves and being open with other people about that and the fact that we're all kind of trying to figure that question out together is healthy. And otherwise, you can kind of wake up 20 years later and be like, wow, I still do this kind of thing because I'm reacting to that thing that happened to me decades ago. And yeah, I think that's something that we should all be comfortable talking about.
And so the other aspect of this that I really loved, besides being a foodie, which I am, and how you utilize that within this film, is how memory has a massive part to play in this movie, especially. But I loved how you talked about how memory can be triggered by something as simple as a meal, and how that lingers within you. Can you talk about that in the film and in the script, how you wanted to portray that, and how that, how the, you know, how important food is in that way, because
Yeah.
it does come as a big part of our life,
Yeah, it's a tricky one because without getting into spoilers,
right?
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, food and sustenance is a way that we share things. And I was, I'm half Italian, so I was one very instrumental part of my life was that after my dad passed away, my grandma moved in with I lived with my mom and my sister, and my grandma moved in with us, and she's this, old Italian lady who's just constantly cooking, and that was kind of her way of trying to like fix things and trying to kind of create a sense of home. And sometimes it became sort of overbearing, but it was also a great comfort. So, food can play a really strong role in how how we're raised, what our sense of family is. So I think that's always been important to me. And I think it's very, I mean, obviously sense memory and all of that is important to everyone. And I think we all associate, you know, what kind of food we were raised with our childhood and with our family. So, that's always been something strong for me, and it was definitely something I wanted to explore in this movie. And yeah, I mean, I think special meals can certainly trigger things in us and bring us back to a time that was more essential and simpler in some ways. And when we share a meal together, we're kind of stripping away a lot of the baggage of life, and we're all kind of acknowledging that we're human and we need to eat together and we need to learn how to enjoy those sort of transient moments.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is I'm actually in Oregon. I live in Eugene, and I'm
Awesome.
very familiar with Portland and that culture there, that it seems to be it's very focused on food, but there's also a lot of uh, kitschy, we got to grab on to the moment type of restaurants and things that are gone within a year. And I really appreciated how you kind of talked about that aspect of the culture there. And I wondered if you actually worked in the industry at all, or where did that aspect come from for you?
I think most of that I've never, the closest thing I've done is when I was in college, I worked at a summer camp where I did the snack bar, but that was about the closest thing to a restaurant job I've had. I mean, I think a lot of that came from, my history with my grandma, who was very into food. And at one point she had a restaurant when she was younger. And then she worked at a snack bar in her older age. And so I saw a lot of that through her, but also, I think food in this movie, it's presented as an art form. I mean, that's his art form. So that can correlate to any kind of art. And in any art, you're trying to find some sort of balance between what you're passionate about and what feels essential to you, and then some sort of economy and commerce around that thing, and trying to balance how much of yourself you're willing to give up and how you stay true to that core. So I think, it wasn't, even having not worked in a restaurant, it wasn't that difficult of a stretch for me to understand that and explore it.
That makes sense. And I really I love seeing Portland there too. It was you shot it beautifully, by the way. You have such a style with this movie that looks like almost a fairy tale in some scenes. How you framed the scenes and how you lit them. Can you talk about the style of it, because it really does
Yeah.
look like in the forest scenes especially, it looks very much like a fairy tale.
Yeah, it was. I mean, first off, Pat Scola was the cinematographer for this, and he was just incredible. And we shot this in 20 days, lots of real
Wow.
locations in Portland. I mean, there was only really the only set we built was his cabin, and we built it out in the state park. But everything else was just an actual restaurant or mausoleum or whatever in Portland. So we were moving around a lot. He didn't have a lot of time. He had to work with a lot of natural light, and he just did an incredible job. I mean, he's super talented and just very fun to work with. Um, and yeah, I mean, early on, we had always kind of talked about this as a little bit of a fable, and and so there was this sense that we're often, oftentimes in fables, you're kind of jumping from these different characters and microcosms to the next, and so we wanted each place to feel like it was kind of its own magical world that had its own rules, and then we were getting a glimpse into that. We got a glimpse into the forest life, and then this other kind of underground truffle scene and the underground restaurant scene. So we wanted to just get this sense that we were kind of peering into something, like looking through a keyhole into a whole strange world that we might not deeply explore, but we're going to move on to the next. And so that was definitely very important. And that, just combined with Pat's incredible eye, turned into this.
It was just beautiful. And so I have to talk to you about Nicolas Cage, because he's one of my favorite actors. And I was just awed by this movie and his performance in it. I know he was a producer on the film as well. Can you talk about how you got him involved in this film and how you described it to him and brought him on board?
Yeah, so initially, very weirdly and thankfully with this movie, I don't think I ever had to really pitch it to anyone. It was not a very long script. It was about 84 pages. So mostly my manager would just send the script to people, and they would read it and either not understand it at all or be really moved by it and want to do it. So I never really had that moment where I had to sit down and be like, so there's a pig, because that would have been really uncomfortable, and I'm terrible at that. But thankfully enough people responded to the script, and it was kind of the same with Nick, where WME, where he's represented, they got the script and they were really excited by it and interested in it, and they were the ones that said, Nick's here now, would, like, why don't we send it to him and see if he's interested? And my initial reaction was just, there's no way, he's not going to want to do this. But he read the script and just really responded to it, and it really resonated with him. And I never had to pitch it to him. I never had to convince him. We had a lunch together where we just kind of sat down and talked about it, and he just got it. I mean, there wasn't it wasn't something that had to be coaxed out. It was just something that he really responded to on a deep level, and that carried over on set where, I mean, he nailed all of these takes in one or two takes, and it just, I don't know, he just understood it, and we were very much on the same wavelength with it and understood what we wanted it to be. And I think it was just such a specific, strange script that kind of everyone involved, they either got it or they didn't. So it was just, I think that really helped us, that we didn't need to coax anything out of anyone really. Everyone was just kind of like, we're making this specific, fably, tone poemy, weird movie about a guy and his pig. Let's do it.
Well, and the thing that I found interesting was when you think of Nicolas Cage, you think over the top a little bit. You think The Rock. You think all of these films like Face Off, and then you come to this and you get to see him back as a core actor that is able to convey emotion, just be dead on. And at one point, I'm not, no spoilers, but at one point you think, oh, it's going to become that kind of movie, and then it completely pulls the rug out from under you. And bravo on that. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Oh, and it was just so well done, and you kept it as real as you could within the script, and I really love that. And it just makes more of the emotional hit for this character that much deeper, because you realize how much punishment he could take.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you. And it has been nice to, it was always a bit of a gamble to do this kind of movie. It's to kind of play in a genre space, but then go somewhere else that might not satisfy some people. That was always a gamble. And that's what's been so great about all the producers, about Neon, like really having faith in the movie. And yeah, so far it's been really nice to see that people do appreciate that. I mean, I'm sure there will be some people that say, where's the shootout? But it's been nice to know that people appreciate that.
Oh yeah. And what my last question for you, because I know I'm about to lose you here, but one thing I always want to know, and especially here within this story, because he doesn't have a lot of dialogue, you take a lot of the back history of this character, of Rob, from what his reactions are and from the people around him. You don't really get a lot of history. Did you and Nick work on a history for the character to kind of build for him to use?
So not really. We were more talking about kind of the emotional space and what we wanted to explore. I think he developed a deeper history in his own mind of what, specifically what happened to certain characters in his life. I'm trying to avoid spoilers as well.
I know, it's really hard.
But yeah, but I think he had a history in his own mind that he had really thought about. But I kind of, if he wanted to talk about it, we would. But in general, I kind of left it to him if he wanted to dive into that. And I think he felt that there was kind of enough in the script for him to go off of and understand the vibe of the character. And then beyond that, I kind of just wanted to leave that up to him if he wanted to explore that more deeply in his own mind and bring that. And I'm sure he did that. And I know he did that to an extent. So yeah, we never really, it sounds kind of dumb, but that was never that important to me. Like, as long as he understood the emotion of it and understood what we were trying to convey emotionally, he was welcome to kind of do whatever he wanted in the background there.
He was sort of a vessel for it. That's great.
And well, I mean, he just did a great job, and I'm so happy with what he did.
And again, you guys got me hard with this movie. It just hit right where it needed to, and it kind of destroyed me for a little while, but I felt better after watching it, which is really
that's
great.
What I was hoping for. I wanted something that felt a little dark and sad while you were going through it, but by the end, there's a weird sense of hope, because we're all struggling with darkness in our lives and in this world, and we need to find a way to live with that and still find some sort of joy with togetherness. And I hope it leaves you feeling that way a little bit.
It does. So again, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a fantastic and beautiful film. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much. And I love your room. I love it.
Thank you. Nick's in here somewhere. I can tell
I'm
you
sure.
that.
I'm sure. It's incredible.
All right. Well, thank you again, and a continued success, sir. You did a
Thank you
fantastic
so
job.
much.
Thank you.
Take